history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, all right. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in time. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. I rise.
I rise.
And I, Agnes Appiah, alongside these beautiful, amazing Black women, I rise.
We're going to invite you, Black women in the audience, all of our allies in the audience, we're going to invite you to also rise. And you can say it yourself. You can put your hand on your heart. You can get up if you want and say, I, with your name, I rise. Can we do that together? Yeah. So I, Karine Aristide, I rise. I rise. I rise. Yes.
Do we rise? We rise. All right.
Yes. So inspiring.
So inspiring, definitely. The great Maya Angelou. May her soul rest in perfect peace. Welcome. Welcome, everyone, to embracing equity and in Black women's health by educating future generation in STEM. This event, as most of you might know, is organized by Women in Communication and Technology, also known as WCT, and Invest Ottawa. Can we clap for them? Yes. So as you've heard, my name is Agnes Appiah.
And I'm Karine Aristide.
And we are your MCs for this evening.
Yeah.
All right. So I know most of you are probably from Ottawa, maybe Toronto, Canada, obviously. But do I have anyone from Orleans in here? Yes, come on, make some noise for Orleans. Yes, all right. Do I have any Gatineau people? Est-ce qu'il y a des francophones ici? Ouais, okay, I like that. Where do you live? This lady lives so far. Who's joining her there? No? Are you the only one? That's okay. We celebrate you. Bayshore, downtown, Centertown, Ottawa, we are here and we are here to celebrate Black women today. We are here to celebrate ourselves. We are here to celebrate the change that we're going to make today in this space.
My daughter wanted to say she's here too, so there's two of us here. the purpose of this evening is to raise awareness on the need to embrace equity when it comes to Black women's health in Canada. We're also here to encourage young people. How many young people here? Okay, anybody under 90 is young people, okay? Let's make it happen today. Okay, so we're here to encourage you to think about pursuing advanced studies in STEM. And we're also here to launch a fundraising campaign for a bursary in Carrie Ann Lindo's name, a young lady who succumbed to cancer last year. And the bursary is to help offset the education for these Black youth to get into STEM at Carleton University, which was her alma mater, is also mine. I graduated from Carleton psychology with a minor in neuroscience and mental health. And I'm actually pursuing a post-bachelor right now in cognitive science. So I'm trying to go all the way to PhD. So thank you for your encouragement. All right. So tonight we have so many amazing things planned. So spoken word artist, so excited for that. We have 3 prominent, amazing speakers, Dr. Julia Daniel, Dr. Daniel Brown Shreves, and Solange Tuyishimi. Let's give a round of applause for these powerful speakers. We're so excited to hear them. And we need your participation tonight for different reasons. But one of those important reasons is to donate. So tonight was a free event organized by Invest Ottawa and WTC. So we're asking you to be generous tonight. We're almost at our goal. Yeah, so Diane, I don't know if she's around. If you can give us an idea of where we're at some point. So we want to surpass our goal, okay? So Diane's going to give more information on that, but please, let's get ready to be generous tonight. And we also need your participation for something else. And this is the brainchild of my lovely co-host here.
So, who knows what STEM means? What does it stand for? What's the acronym? You can shout it out. Okay, good. I stand here to say, hearing those words a couple of years ago, I was scared of them. Okay, because I had never seen anyone that looked like me in those fields. So when I heard about today's event, I told myself, how can someone else like me that might be scared to go into these fields think about STEM differently? So what we came up with is that we would like for you tonight to think about empowering words that represent the same acronym as STEM. So instead of thinking of science, maybe you think of, right? Or instead of thinking of technology, you could think of talent. So at the end of the night, we're going to come back up here and hear what you had to say, hear what you wrote. Take your phones, write a word, just dive in. What does STEM really mean, apart from the big words? What does it actually mean to see Black girls in those fields, people that look like me? I wish I had that at my time, but it's not too late because we're raising a new generation, and I know for a fact that we will see them in those fields. All right, so are you all ready for that? Oh no, I don't think you are. Are you ready to recreate STEM in a more positive way? Come on, make some noise for me. That's right. All right. Well, I'm gonna go rest my voice. Karen, the floor is all yours.
Isn't she lovely, my co-MC? Yeah. So I'm going to begin the evening by introducing the woman that is responsible for us being here tonight. And I know she doesn't like to be introduced formally, but I have to do it. She's a powerful woman. So her name is Sonia Shori. She's a vice president of strategy, marketing, and communications with 23 plus years of leadership experience in private and public organizations, specializing in corporate and communications leadership, strategy development, and execution. She has led successfully multi-year funding proposals valued at, are you ready for this? Over $212 million, engaging multiple stakeholders from industry, academia, nonprofits, and currently serves as the VP of Strategy for Invest Ottawa, Bayview Yards, and Area XO. She is also a director for the Royal Ottawa Hospital, Elevate International, and Mind Trust, and a mentor with Women in Cloud and Women in AI North America, and a pitch coach with Technovation. Sonia has won 10 international awards for communications and 3 awards for entrepreneurial leadership and the economic empowerment of women. Please help me welcome the powerful Sonia Shori.
Yes, I said just my title. It's wonderful. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful. Thank you so much, Karine and Agnes, and to all of you who are joining us this evening here and online. It is a tremendous privilege. I am not responsible for tonight. Diane Watson is responsible for tonight, and I want all of the credit to go to her. We love partnering with WCT. We love partnering with you, Diane, with Jasmine, with the entire team, and we want you to feel at home here. This is the launch of International Women's Month in Canada's capital. We bring together thousands of people, dozens of partners, and our entire goal is to equip, empower, and inspire more current women aspiring leaders in all fields from every walk of life. There is no greater way that we could launch this important month than with all of you here tonight as we celebrate the conclusion of Black History Month, the start of International Women's Month, and we bring it all together with you. This is your innovation hub. I want you to feel a sense of belonging here every single day that you are in this community. Please do not let tonight be the only time that you join us. We would love to see all of you throughout the entire month of March when we have all of our IWW events. We're on a diversity, equity, and inclusion journey here at Invest Ottawa, at Bayview Yards and Area XO, and we have a long way to go, but we are committed and we are thrilled and proud and privileged to have you with us tonight. You are our guests of honor, and we are here to equip, empower as many Black women leaders as we can. And in particular, I am very passionate, and I'm going to be very teary tonight as we talk about that incredible bursary and that young woman, Carrie Ann, who did marvelous things. There is no greater gift than to inspire generations behind you, and she will inspire and empower generations for come. So I wanted to thank Diane and Jasmine for the opportunity to collaborate with you on this very important event. I want to extend a wonderfully warm welcome to Wayne Lindo, Carrie Ann's father, and the entire family who joins us here this evening. It is an absolute honor to have you. And my only regret is that we didn't know your daughter personally, but we will celebrate her and we will drive that bursary and we will help many, many generations for Black young people in STEM to come. I want to extend a warm welcome as well to Her Excellency Sharon Miller, High Commissioner of Jamaica. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And now to perform a beautiful land acknowledgement ceremony, I'm honored to introduce Monique Menache, Knowledge Keeper, member of the Algonquins at Barrier Lake, and Executive Director of the Indigenous Culture and Media Innovation Center. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage to launch this evening.
Pajashig, welcome. Welcome to unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin territory. Monique Manach Indishnikos, Kitikanik Anishna Bekandojaba. My name is Monique Manach, and I'm a member of the Algonquins of Barrier Lake. I was thinking about STEM and the acronym, and I kept thinking, it kept bringing this story we have. We have many creation stories. And one of them is that when the Creator decided to make human beings, she went to the rest of creation. And she said, so I'm going to make human beings. And because she made everything else first, we were created last. And she said, you're going to have to help them because they're not going to be able to hear very well or see very well. They're not going to have fangs or claws or fur or feathers. So they're going to need your help. And of course, you know, all of creation knew the cycle of sacrifice that happens so that, you know, some die so others will live. And they knew that was part of how they would help. But they all got together and they had a conversation and decided, you know, talked about, are we going to help these human beings? There were quite a few who didn't think we'd last very long. Well, but they helped us, you see. They did decide to help us. And they went back to the Creator and they said, okay. So the Creator made a sacred fire. And into that sacred fire, every single member of creation stepped up. And they put in a gift, an attribute, a skill. And when they were done, a woman and a man stepped out. And you know, they say from the wolf, we learn compassion, we learn about family. From the eagle, we learn to see clearly, and we learn to pray, because the eagle flies the highest and it brings our prayers to the Creator. They say from the white pine, we learn patience. You know, when you look at the trees all around here, prior to contact, there was another canopy that was at least 300 to 400 feet above the trees you see here. And while the trees that have been logged have grown, it's going to be another 300 years before they grow, if they're allowed to, grow to the size that they were before. And so that's a long time. And so the tree learns patience because it takes that long for it to mature. And they say from lice, we learn persistence. So no matter what the creation, there's a gift in there that we as human beings were given. And once we stepped out of that fire, we knew in our hearts and in our minds and in our souls and in our bones that we owed them a debt of gratitude, and we would not be here and we will not survive without them. And so when I think about science and technology and engineering and math, there's a member of creation who gave us those, you know, and when we look around us, we look at the world around us, we see that every day. We see it everywhere we look. And it was meant for everyone. And in our stories, women are the creators, because we are the ones who give life. We are the ones who create life. And so it only stands to reason that women, no matter where you're from an Indigenous community, from a Black community, from whatever community, that it's natural for us. Not only do we deserve to be in STEM, but that it was made for us in mind. And so now I'd like to open this space, make it a safe space, a sacred space, a creative space, a space of loving and knowing and sharing, a space where we're free to say what's in our minds and in our hearts. And I'll do that with a few words to the Creator. Kachimigwich Jemnado. Thank you, Creator. Thank you for our mother, the earth, and all the things that live beneath the surface of the earth, for the sky above us, for all the trees, the plants, the rivers, the streams. Thank you for everything you've put in our homelands that help human beings to live well. We acknowledge and honor our ceremonies and our medicines. We acknowledge and honor the bees and the insects and everything that helps the plants to grow. We thank you for our ability to take care of each other and to bring peace to one another in times of trouble and anguish. We thank you for our friends and our family, and we ask you to watch over them if they are ill, whether it be mentally, physically, or through addictions. And we ask that they have a good day today and that they return to us soon as role models and as mentors. And we remember our role and responsibilities to live with respect and to care about all living things. Kachimigwich, 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 Kachimigwich. Thank you very much. I know we're going to have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Miigwech, sorry. This deep voice of mine, I tell you, I should be in radio or something, you know? Just pointed it out there. Anyways, there's so much I want to say from what you said, Elder. One of the things that I really loved is when you mentioned that no matter the creation, there is a gift in there. That's super powerful. So no matter what circumstance or situation you grew up in, there is a gift inside of you. And coming up next is somebody that is gifted with my love language, which is spoken words, storytelling. Her name is Nanso Noni Mora. She's a student and creative based in Ottawa and born in the innovative city of Edmonton, Alberta. Known for her storytelling, she uses spoken word poetry and photography to translate her experiences growing up as a second-generation Nigerian. I could definitely relate to that. Second-generation Nigerian woman in the space that did not represent her history and that of the people who preceded her. Her work focuses on themes of identity, transformation, and social change as it observes the minuscule details of life we unknowingly miss in a world filled with disinformation and distraction. Her prize-winning piece, When I Tell You I Love You, won the first place at the 2022 Spoken in the City Slam competition. She has performed across Ottawa and Toronto for various organizations, including the Government of Canada, Project Agape, and Carleton University. So one thing about spoken word, for those that know or don't know, is when a spoken word artist shares something and it resonates with you, who knows what you do? Okay, all right. That's right. So while she comes on stage, when she speaks, when she says something that hits your heart, you snap. When she speaks a word or something that you're not sure of, you snap. When you don't know what the heck she's saying, you're still snapping. So are we ready to snap today? Come on, let's get our snap on as we welcome Nanso. Yes.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here. It's such a beautiful event and a beautiful day, and I'm honored to be able to speak for you guys today. When you were speaking about STEM and the acronyms. It's very funny because that's the first thing I did when I was writing this poem. So the acronym I came up with was Start Today, Engagement Matters. And I think that hits very well, but it also kind of touches on a lot of things we will be discussing today. As it was stated, we are at the intersection, the end of Black History Month, even though Black History is not a month long, and the beginning of International Women's Month. So I am very honored to be able to share and help us enter that period of time. So the poem I have here today, I call it Black Women, the Blueprint. I think it's a poem that should fit every person who's felt like their existence has not mattered, especially when it comes to fields like STEM. I am not a STEM queen, but I've had my dreams and aspirations of being there. And I'm very honored to be in a room with people who do find connection to STEM. And I do think that this poem will hit everyone here, no matter who you are and what you've been through, because it's a poem that speaks to the human condition in itself. So thank you. See, I know Black women better than I know myself, better than the lines laced within my wrists, better than the beat of my own heart, better than the auburn of my own complexion. From the way they molded my melanin to matter, from the clicks and ticks of their big-hearted chatter, to the heat of their hands as they soothed my hair, to the fire in their glare when the world says sincere. See, I know Black women better than I know myself. Their bodies, the target, their minds, the sickle, their magic magnetic until one day vilified, yet speak power to truth. Women, Black women, have always given more to open these doors than anyone else before. The first time I heard of Henrietta Lacks, my organs placed my soul under house arrest. Thought the cells of her stolen body had bathed its way into my bloodstream. A vaccine feared I too was now complicit in the theft of her remains. Watched Hidden Figures with my mother. We cried with each other. Felt ashamed that it never dawned on us of changing the game even when they refused to say our names. Cried wolf to a teacher when he stated that I was better off being a speaker than a scientific leader. And I am a speaker, but at my own behest and not that of a white man who could not write a test. Women have always been the bridge between science and magic. Their bodies, the greatest magic trick of all. Make something from nothing, make wonder from grown asunder, yet still we find ourselves bent at societal master, plastered at the whims, bearing all the problems while we, the silence, hold every solution and tools to solve them. Told we are not ready, reminded of where we come from, the cobblestone kitchen, the cast iron tradition, a man's home. Forget the man too came from a woman's dome. Black women have always been the forefront of discovery, and now it is time to add our names to the summary. Take space, stand straight, make way for your sisters in arm. No longer will we obtain our degrees with ease and fall short when we ask for a pay increase. No longer will they deny us conviction we deserve, yet hand convictions to our brothers and sons to serve. Let us make the rules in every building. Let us make the rules in every field. Let us lead the path so our futures will be healed. Miss Lindo used to say, every generation better than the previous. And now, as I feel her presence, it's here today. Thank you.
I think she said something like, make the room for us. Did you say that? Okay. Make room. Like, we're out here, we're ready. Young women, are you not ready to go into those fields? Are you not ready to break that, what's that called, that glass? That stained glass that's been there for generations? This is the time. 2023 and beyond. They better be afraid of y'all. But in a good sense, okay? Afraid in a good sense. We're taking over. So next up, we have our beautiful Diane Watson that's going to come up. So Diane will be providing us with a bit more details around one of the key reasons for this event by first sharing a tribute video on the late Carrie Ann Lindo, followed by providing more details on the memorial bursary. Before Diane comes up, I just would love to read a little bit about how amazing she is. Is that okay? All right. So Diane has several years of cross-functional experience in the high-tech industry. She's currently a program manager at Nokia Canada, working in the cloud and network services business group. She is also passionate about giving back to the community, and over the years, she has volunteered her expertise and the time to several professional community projects, programs, and organizations. She thrives when collaborating with local community. I mean, is it not obvious? Invest Ottawa, hello. See, that's what happens when you just don't read the lines properly. You lose your train of thought. Let me go back. I think I needed to repeat that, that's why. She thrives when collaborating with local community groups and organizations on diversity and inclusion initiatives that educate, support, and encourages women, girls, and visible minorities to consider STEM careers. She currently serves as a member of Nokia's Employee Resource, ERG, group for women, Strong Her Canada, and she is the chair of the Women in Communication and Technology Network of Canada, National Capital Region, the beautiful Ottawa. In her spare time, she enjoys teaching Zumba. Are you going to show us some Zumba skills? I hope so. She enjoys teaching Zumba at Nokia and local community gyms. Before Diane comes, I do want to let everyone know that we have an online presence. So we're not alone. It's not only us here. We do have people online. So if you're online, we see you, we hear you, and welcome. So without further ado, can we please clap and celebrate Diane Watson, please, as she comes up.
Hello, everybody. We're going to start with a tribute video first.
Natural beauty, yeah. No, I've never been someone shy until I seen your eyes. Still I had to try, yeah. Oh yes, let me get my words right and then approach you. Woman, I'll treat you like a man is supposed to. You'll never have to cry, no. I know everyone can relate to when they find a special someone. And she's royal, yeah, so royal. Want her in my life. I never knew anyone so one of a kind. No, the way she moves to her own beat, she has the qualities of a queen. She's a queen. Ooh, ooh, what a natural beauty. No need no makeup to be a cutie. She's a queen. She's a queen. And when they ask what a good woman's made of, she's not afraid and ashamed of who she is. She's royal, yeah, so royal. And I need her in my life. I never knew anyone so one of a kind until the night that I seen your eyes. My queen, so sweet. I can see it in her eyes, the way she smiles. Hey, yes, I know the king and queen crown, same time. So I'd never leave your side. Just stick with me through the trial times.
Okay, I'll see if I can get through this. Every generation is better than the previous one. That was one of Kerry's favorite sayings, and for her vibrant life, as the video we just watched showed, to be cut short at the tender age of 29, this quote is even more applicable today as we celebrate Black History Month. We, and I'm talking about the Black people in this room, online and here in Canada, are far better off than our ancestors because of their tremendous sacrifices. However, the fight and struggle for equality and equity continues, given the deep-rooted system that has been in place for centuries. Kerry did not get the opportunity to live out her life. Her generation is still growing up and are already making a great impact on the world. Over the past month, I've had the great pleasure of attending some of the most powerful, inspirational, and well-organized events led by Black students at universities and colleges in our city. I was invited to speak at the Carleton's Black Student in Public Affairs inaugural conference, Afrofuturism. One of the young ladies is here today. It was about reimagining climate change from a Black lens and its impact on vulnerable countries and communities. I was blown away by the quality of the event. I even had to admit to them that when I was their age at university, I was planning Carnival in Jamaica. So kudos for them for getting into activism and advocacy so early in their lives. I was also a panelist at Algonquin College's Students Association BIPOC networking seminar, where students learned about the power of networking and the need to find and foster connections in order to be successful here in Canada. But it was not lost on me just how difficult that can be, especially if you're an immigrant with no network to begin with. And finally, this past weekend, the University of Ottawa Student Union's Black History Month Gala was beyond amazing, where I had the privilege of hearing from and actually meeting Terrence Floyd, the brother of the late George Floyd. His speech reminded me and the audience that although we have come a far way, we still have a far way to go, given that his brother's murder and many others are still happening today. It was heartwarming to see the community's support of him and the organizers. We left with several takeaways on how we can all help to strive for equity of surviving in this world and finding opportunities to better the lives for the next generation. So I have to agree with Kerry, every generation better than the previous one. I would like to introduce to you how I am connected to Kerry. To her, I'm simply her Auntie Di. As an immigrant to Canada, I met Kerry's family when I moved to Ottawa some 20 years ago, and we instantly became family. I watched her grow up into a caring, generous, and tenacious young woman. I remember like it was yesterday when she came by my house, all excited to show off the new car she had just bought. She was looking forward to becoming a permanent employee at the National Research Council. We spoke for hours of all the plans she had for her future. She was so hopeful, and I was so proud of her, since not even 5 years before that visit, she had gotten the terrible breast cancer diagnosis, just as she began her first year of university. She had to drop out to undergo treatment, but her determination to continue once her cancer was in remission was remarkable, and her resilient character resulted in her completing her degree in English and Communication Studies at Carleton University. So you can only imagine our shock and horror when we found out that her cancer was back and the prognosis this time was not good. After a couple more years of battling, she passed away last year, May. Tomorrow would have been her 30th birthday. In my current role as chair of WCT NCR, one of the main organizers of this event, I want to give you a bit of background on how this event came to be. The genesis of this evening was derived from a similar tragedy that befell a fellow WCT chairwoman whose daughter had also passed away, and this spawned an initial discussion about a scholarship or bursary to honor her passing. The idea lit a spark in me. I thought, that is how we can honor Kerry as well. I took the idea back to the WCT NCR board, and they loved it since it aligned perfectly with our organization's purpose. We refined the idea and with her family's blessing, came up with this event to celebrate Black History Month and also at the same time celebrate International Women's Week. Merging the two causes would help to raise awareness on the need to embrace equity when it comes to Black women's health in Canada, given Kerry's diagnosis, and also to use it as a way to encourage Black youth to consider pursuing advanced studies in STEM fields where we are greatly underrepresented. We know for youth to be inspired, especially people of color or racialized groups, they would have to hear from role models who look like them. You can't be what you can't see. And we are indeed lucky and honored to have with us today these exemplary women speakers who we will hear from shortly. I can't wait. One of my favorite quotes by Nelson Henderson is, "The true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit." Kerry's last act of service was to donate her body to science to help cancer research for future generations. She's hoping that research will result in breakthroughs in cancer treatment so that no one would have to face what she and her family went through. That future scientist, doctor, engineer, entrepreneur, teacher, you name it, could be sitting here today. So I'm asking everyone in attendance, whether you are online or in person, and I don't know if we have it up. There we go. To take out your phones, go to the camera app and scan that QR code. It will take you to the secure Carleton University of Future Funders page for the Kerry Ann Lindo Memorial Award. All you have to do is click on the red button, donate now, choose the amount you want. We will take as much as you can give. Fill out a few personal details, and at the end, you will receive a charitable donation receipt. It's that simple. Our initial goal for this school year is to raise $5,000 minimum by the end of March. Today, we are at $3,230. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could surpass that goal today so that we can help even more youths pursue tertiary education? So, am I seeing the phones up? Yes, yeah, a couple. That's good. And I hope the folks online are doing it as well. Maya Angelou famously said to Oprah when she was discussing her legacy would be, and I quote, "You have no idea what your legacy will be. Your legacy is what you do every day. Your legacy is every life you have touched, every person that you have it's every person you have harmed or helped. That's your legacy. Don't worry about it. Just try to live it." Let's honor Kerry's life and legacy for a life gone way too soon. She donated her body to science. Let's help in her name to make her light continue to shine by easing the financial burden a little bit on the next generation of future Black excellence. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Wow. I certainly wish I had had the privilege of knowing Carrie Ann. She's truly a modern day hero. So I feel honored to participate in this event that's in her name. And I'm hopeful that everyone here have already started to donate, and we encourage you to continue to do so. I love her quote, "Every generation better than the previous one." Let's be that generation that makes a difference in her name. All right. Wow, $3,230 so far. That's amazing. I know this tonight we can get this done. Yes? Can I hear the yes? All right, I love it. So we have a little trivia, which we didn't let you know in the beginning. Surprise! So we have, I don't know, does anybody here know Slido, how that works? Oh, perfect. So we're going to have a Slido up on the screen before we introduce our next speaker. And so the question, you see the question, what percentage of STEM graduates in Canada are Black women? All right, so make sure you QR code it or go to the site, get this done. So we'll give you a few minutes to vote, and we're gonna see the responses live, actually. So that's pretty cool. So we'll give you, all right, let's do this. Okay. Good job, good job. Do we need one more minute or are we all done? Oh, you need one? Okay, go ahead, girl. No problem, no problem. All right. Okay, looks like everybody's going for the 12%. Anybody wants to challenge that? Looks like, looks like we're looking at 12%. So 76% of you believe the answer is 12%. Are you ready for the answer? Yeah? Okay. It was a trick question, people, all right? Because we actually don't have the data, so. But at least you participated, so that's wonderful. All right. So we'll make the answer 12%. How about that? That works? All right. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first distinguished speaker tonight, Dr. Daniel. Dr. Daniel is a professor and cancer biologist in the biology department of McMaster University. Dr. Daniel's research led to her discovery and naming of a new gene, Kaizo. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Kaizo? Kaizo. Okay, thank you so much. Coined from the popular Caribbean music Calypso. I thought that's really cool. Her team is currently focused on the aggressive and difficult to treat triple negative breast cancers, TNBC, that are most prevalent in young women of African ancestry compared to other ethnicities, despite a lower incidence and lifetime risk of breast cancer than Caucasian women. Dr. Daniel and her team seek to identify unique DNA mutations or markers on cells that may explain the racial disparity and which can be developed for diagnostic tests or therapeutics for women worldwide, regardless of ethnicity. Dr. Daniel partners with the Olive Branch of Hope, TOBOH, Cancer Support Service in Toronto to organize Think Beyond Love Pink breast cancer awareness workshops for women of African ancestry in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, and also in the Caribbean as well. Dr. Daniel has been the recipient of several prestigious awards and has been featured in Millennium Minds, 100 Black Canadians, and also Who's Who in Black Canada. Please help me give a warm welcome to Dr. Daniel.
Okay, I guess I start. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very, very much to the organizers, to Diane in particular, for reaching out and inviting me to participate in this event this evening in honor of Carrie Ann, who, like many of you in the audience and at the event, were not blessed or privileged to meet Carrie Ann, but from her slideshow, we can tell she was a phenomenal woman. So I'll begin my presentation in the interest of time. And I first like to give a land acknowledgement, as I was unable to make it to Ottawa this evening. I really wanted to be there in person. So I'd like to start by saying that I acknowledge that I am personally a settler on Turtle Island, and today I am speaking from the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations, and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. For thousands of years, Indigenous people inhabited and cared for this land, and they continue to do so today. I am grateful for the opportunity to work here on this land, and I show my respect for its first inhabitants and Indigenous people now by doing my part to care for this land. Next slide. So my journey from Barbados, Diane asked me to talk about my journey, some of my research, and to inspire the youth. So just so that this little overview of how my presentation is going to go. So I was born and raised in Barbados. I was always fascinated with the human body and the natural world. I was that kid that always asked why are the flowers, why are there so few blue flowers? Why are there so many red or yellow flowers? I was really good at math and physics, and however, none of my teachers suggested I become an engineer. Even though I wasn't doing biology in my senior years of high school, they all suggested I pursue a career in medicine. No one in my family had attended university, so they also wanted me to go to med school because that's what we all know in the Caribbean is one of the most prestigious careers to pursue. Nonetheless, I knew that I wanted to do research with global impact, something that would help people globally, regardless of whatever that research was that I was pursuing. So my family saved enough money for me to go overseas for the first year of university if I so decided. And I did, and I chose Queen's University. So upon, next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I grew up in Barbados. I went to Queen's College, the top girls' school in Barbados at the time. This is a photo of me and some of my friends. I think it was 4th or 5th form because we're still wearing our full tunics. And upon completion of my high school studies, if you just click in advance, it'll click to show some other animations. Thank you. So after Queen's College, as I said, my parents saved enough money and I applied to various universities in Canada, actually. But Queen's University was the only one that actually saw me as an individual when I applied and before I even got there. And so when the decision came, when we had to make that decision as to which university I should attend, we chose Queen's University because they were the only ones that sent me, every 2 weeks we got a package with a map of Ontario, a map of Kingston, information about Queen's University itself, information about Canada. None of the other universities did that. And this was what I call the dinosaur era, where we had no internet, no Wikipedia, no Google. And we were definitely not able to afford coming to Canada and explore all the different universities. And then upon completion of my degree at Queen's, I went to UBC to do my PhD, and I'll fill you in on that whole journey in a few minutes. Next slide. So as I said, I went to Queen's University. It was all exciting and fun. It was a big adventure. It was my first time living away from home and my family and being in a culture that was completely new to me. However, in the fall of 1986, my last year of my undergrad degree, is what I call a series of unfortunate events or serendipity, I'm not sure. But my neighbor in Barbados died, passed away from breast cancer. I think it was October. And then a month later in November, my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And in that same first semester of 4th year, one of my professors, Dr. Lita Raptis, came to class all excited about the discovery of this new class of genes called oncogenes, which when they were mutated, were causing tumors in animal models such as mouse and chickens. And so this confluence of events led me to think that perhaps I should pursue a career as a researcher rather than medical school. Of course, I applied to both just in case because I had no idea what was going to happen. And unfortunately, my mom actually passed away from ovarian cancer 4 days before my convocation. And she and my father, obviously, were unable to come. My dad stayed behind in Barbados once she passed away. And I spent the summer in Barbados and made the decision to go to graduate school and move to UBC. Next slide. Next slide, yeah. So I did my PhD at UBC, spent 6 glorious years there. It was a lot warmer than Ontario, and that was part of my decision making actually to apply to UBC. I heard it was the warmest place in Canada, and I was sick and tired of the cold in Ontario after 4 years. The adventure of snow had worn off significantly. So upon completion of my PhD, it's typical to, when you complete your PhD, to do something called a postdoctoral fellowship. And I applied several places. If you just advance the slides one at a time. So one place that I applied and was really interested in going to was London, England. I was also interested in going to San Francisco. And I was interested in going to Memphis. You can click, sorry, we couldn't have me control the slides from here. And finally, the last place I applied to was Memphis, Tennessee. I was really, really eager to go to London or San Francisco because I love traveling. I love both those cities. And I really wanted to go to those cities, but unfortunately, both of those research projects, even though I was offered positions, those research topics had many, many people around the world studying those proteins. However, the lab in Memphis was studying a novel protein that only that researcher was studying at the time. And I felt like that was my one opportunity to actually make a significant discovery and contribute to cancer research. So much to the surprise and chagrin of many of my friends and family, I chose Memphis, Tennessee, which was way out of my comfort zone in the Deep South, but it was also, I think, a place where I grew a lot as an individual and as a scientist. And that's where I actually cloned and discovered the gene that my supervisor at the time, Dr. Al Reynolds, said that I could name it anything I wanted. And once I confirmed that I could name it anything I wanted, I named it Kaiso after my favorite Calypso music because I absolutely love soca and Calypso. Next slide, please. So for those of you that live in Toronto, the GTA, and or from the Caribbean, you know exactly what soca and Calypso is. Last week was Carnival in Trinidad, and many of us wish we were there. Next slide, please. So I would say, so after completing my postdoc for 6 years in Tennessee, I came back to Canada and joined the faculty at McMaster University in November 1999 and took up residence here in the city of Waterfalls. For those of you that don't know, Hamilton is the city of waterfalls. We have over 34 waterfalls in the city. Next slide. So my first 8 to 10 years as a professor at McMaster was spent characterizing Kaiso. As I said, it was a brand new gene. No one else was studying it. And we needed to know what it did, how it did it, so that we could better understand its role or potential role in cancers and other diseases. So some of the things that we determined was that it was what we call a dual specificity transcription factor. It bound to 2 different types of DNA, which was also a very unique feature because many transcription factors only bind to 1 type of DNA. So that already pointed out to us that this was not a low-hanging fruit kind of protein to be studying. It also regulates multiple biological processes, cell proliferation, cell motility, apoptosis, inflammation, many of which, or all of which, play roles in cancers. And our lab and others who then subsequently started to study Kaiso found that Kaiso was misexpressed and misregulated in multiple cancers, including breast, prostate, lung, pancreas. Next slide. So in my lab, we study breast and colon cancer, but again, in the interest of time and because of Carrie Ann's story, I'm just going to talk about the bulk of this talk about breast cancer. So just a little refresher, breast cancer is unfortunately the most common type of female cancer globally. It can be inherited, or it can happen through just random DNA damage through environmental factors and exposure, things that we eat, etc. And that's how the majority of breast cancers actually arise. Only 10 to 15% of breast cancers are actually inherited from our mothers. The incidence in women is approximately 1 in 8 to 1 in 9 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer, and 1 in 28 die. But a little fact that many people don't know is that men also get breast cancer, and men also die from breast cancer. Hence the title of our workshops, Think Beyond Love Pink, because pink is definitely not a male color, and we want people, we want everyone to think beyond pink when they're thinking about breast cancer. The good news, however, is that although breast cancer incidence rose steadily from the 1980s to 1990s, when I was an undergrad student, I remember the survival rates for breast cancer in the early 1990s was approximately 50-something%. However, due to increased screening and awareness and more research, the actual 5-year survival rate right now from breast cancer is 80 to 90%. So early detection does save lives, and it does increase the survival rate of breast cancer diagnosis. So breast cancer is treatable, but it has to be detected early. And need to work more on talking about this and being aware and not being stigmatized by a cancer diagnosis. Next slide, please. So I remember when I was my first 8 or so years, I remember thinking, oh, my dream is to do some global research. I don't see how this fundamental research characterizing a transcription factor is going to help anyone in the world. And then I went to this conference in 2008 in the US, the American Association of Cancer Research Conference. And a year or two earlier, I had also attended a retirement workshop that McMaster recommended for employees in their mid-careers. And I already had a vision and a hope that I would be able to give back to the Caribbean and somehow inspire and help people in the Caribbean. So at this particular conference, I heard a professor, Dr. Lisa Newman, who was a breast oncologist in the US, and she was traveling to Ghana and teaching physicians in Ghana how to conduct breast surgeries, breast oncology surgeries, so breast cancer surgeries. And she was finding that over 50% of the breast cancer patients in Ghana were being diagnosed with this really unusual breast cancer subtype called triple negative breast cancer. Next slide. Next slide. So what is triple negative breast cancer? As the name suggests, this is a breast cancer that is negative for the expression of 3 biomarkers that are typically used to characterize and classify all breast cancers. It's most prevalent in young Black premenopausal women. So basically in their 30s or 40s when they're not even thinking of getting breast cancer, and sometimes when the doctors are not even expecting a woman of that age to present with breast cancer, and consequently some physicians dismiss young women, regardless of their ethnicity. If they come and say, well, I'm finding a lump, I don't think this is right, they dismiss it because they don't expect young women to have breast cancer, far less young Black women. However, because of this triple negative status, which I'll explain in a minute, there's no specific therapies for this subtype of breast cancer, and consequently any woman diagnosed with this breast cancer subtype, regardless of ethnicity, has a poor prognosis. According to the WHO, breast cancer is also an emerging health crisis in Africa because the survival rate there is less than 50%. So that is similar to the rates that we had in North America in the 1980s. And so basically 1 in 2 women in Africa are dying from breast cancer, which means we need way more hands on deck to study and understand why this is so prevalent in young Black women, to ensure that we do not have such a significant loss of Black women in the African diaspora. Next slide, please. So as I said, triple negative breast cancer is characterized by the absence of 3 biomarkers. When a woman finds a lump and she's sent for, or a man, and they're sent for a breast tumor biopsy, that tumor is then analyzed by a pathologist, and what they're looking for is the expression of 3 biomarkers or 3 proteins: the estrogen receptor, or ER, progesterone receptor, or PR, the human epidermal growth factor receptor, or HER2. So if you look at this diagram that I tried to draw here, tumors that are estrogen receptor and progesterone receptor positive can be treated with a drug known as tamoxifen. Tumors that are positive for HER2 can be treated with a drug known as Herceptin. And I'm sure many of you have heard about these 2 drugs or know people that have been diagnosed with cancer and are taking those 2 drugs. Unfortunately, however, triple negative breast tumors do not express ER, PR, or HER2. So none of the 2 well-established treatments for breast cancer, tamoxifen or Herceptin, can be used to treat triple negative patients. And those patients are simply treated with what we call standard chemotherapy, with its very negative side effects of nausea, hair loss, etc., and radiation therapy. And these tumors also tend to be incredibly aggressive, and scientists and oncologists don't fully understand why, and that's one of the things that we're trying to study in my lab. Next slide, please. So, well, as I said, after learning about this at the conference in 2008 with Dr. Newman, for my next research leave in 2011, I went to Barbados to establish collaborations with pathologists and oncologists there to see whether or not triple negative breast cancers were also prevalent in the Caribbean, at least in Barbados. And in the process of, during this time frame, I also recruited a talented graduate student, Blessing Bassi Arkibong, who was a Nigerian student studying at the time in the UK. And then she came and joined my lab to do her PhD in 2012. And one of the first experiments we did was in collaboration with a colleague in the Netherlands. He was studying Kaizo and cell adhesion from the perspective of patients in the Netherlands. And what he found was that patients with invasive ductal carcinoma, which if you look at the diagram on the left, you see these two square boxes with Kaizo at the top. And the top image has darker brown staining than the bottom image. And that brown staining is indicative of the amount of Kaizo protein in the breast tumors. So the darker the brown staining, the more Kaizo protein there is. And you'll see that invasive ductal carcinomas, or IDC, have a lot more Kaizo expression in the nucleus and cytoplasm of those tumors compared to the invasive lobular carcinomas, or ILCs. Blessing also went and examined publicly available databases, which indicate for patients whose genomes, et cetera, and RNA expression has been analyzed. And you can correlate the survival of those patients, because at least most of this data, I should point out, is actually American-based data. Unfortunately, in Canada, we do not collect any race-based data for any disease. So it's been a bit, so pretty much most of our studies are used or based on American data. And hopefully in 5 to 10 years, we will have some Canadian data now that there's more awareness about the need and the necessity to look at this in a Canadian context. Nonetheless, when Blessing looked at the data using US data, we found that women who had high levels of Kaizo expression, indicated by the red line, had the worst overall survival. You'll notice that those women, unfortunately, I just noticed the percentage survival isn't on there, but basically the red line is lower than all the other lines, indicating shorter survival and higher mortality. Whereas those patients with the blue line, who had very low Kaizo level, had a lot longer life and higher survival rates. Next slide. So this led us to postulate or hypothesize that perhaps high Kaizo expression was contributing to this metastatic phenotype of triple-negative breast cancer. And this was because I actually first identified Kaizo when I was studying cell-cell adhesion and how its malfunction was contributing to cancer. Next slide. So what Blessing did, and what we typically do in cancer research and many other disease studies, is if there's a protein or a gene that's overexpressed, the best way to understand what it does is to remove that gene or that protein to see how that impacts the cells or the model organism that you're studying. So in our case, we were seeing lots of Kaizo expression in triple-negative breast cancer cells in culture. So Blessing generated clones from those cells where we removed Kaizo expression, indicated here by the dark black lines in the boxes on the left. And you'll see the parental MDA231 cells have lots of Kaizo expression and very little expression of a protein named E-cadherin right above it. However, when we generated clones of those cells where we removed Kaizo expression, indicated by the absence of a black band in the Kaizo line, but then suddenly, hopefully you can appreciate there's now lots of E-cadherin above that. That indicates that we've successfully removed or depleted Kaizo expression, and suddenly we were able to trigger the expression of E-cadherin. And E-cadherin is a cell adhesion protein that actually stabilizes cell-to-cell adhesion and prevents cell motility. So this is depicted on the right, where we look at the actual morphology of the cells. So if these are, again, triple-negative breast cancer cells, MDA231, the parental cells have what we call a mesenchymal or fibroblastic or highly motile phenotype. They're very long and spindly. However, when we remove Kaizo from those cells, I hope you can appreciate the change in morphology. The cells are now a lot flatter. They're sticking together in nice clumps, which means they're a lot less motile. They're not going to move. They're not going to spread to other organs. So this was a really exciting finding, but it was in cell culture. So to validate and confirm that Kaizo was indeed contributing to this aggressive properties of triple-negative breast cancer cells. Next slide, please. Blessing took those cells that she made and we injected them into the mammary fat pads or the breast of immunocompromised mice. So these mice are immunocompromised to allow us to inject human breast cancer cells into the mice without rejecting them. So one set of mice received the parental triple-negative breast cancer cells indicated by the cells with lots of Ks for Kaizo. Another set of mice received the cells where we had depleted most of the Kaizo, and I just have 2 Ks there because you can never actually deplete 100% of the protein in these cells. We then monitored the mice for 8 to 12 weeks, and typically the cells that have been injected will grow and form tumors in the mice wherever you injected them. And then we sacrificed the mice 8 to 12 weeks later, and we looked in the lungs and liver, which are known to be vital organs that many triple-negative tumors would metastasize to in humans. These MDA231 cells have been well characterized by many labs around the world, so we knew that those cells always metastasize to the lungs and the liver when they're injected into mice. Next slide, please. So here in this diagram or this slide, basically this was kind of our like exciting eureka moment result. So we found that just as published by many others and seen in many other labs, when our mice were injected with the parental MDA231 cells that express a lot of Kaizo, there was significant amount of tumor spread from the breast of the mice to the lungs and the liver, indicated here by those dark purple regions outlined with the white dotted lines. So the dark purple regions are the human cells that have spread to the lungs and the liver of the mice. The two boxes or images on the right are taken from the lungs and livers of mice that were injected with the Kaizo-depleted triple-negative breast cancer cells. And the only thing, as I said, that we've done to these cells is removed or minimized the amount of Kaizo expression. And I hope you can see that there's a significant difference and amount of metastases in those livers and lungs compared to the parental cells, indicating that perhaps Kaizo can be a target to develop new therapies to prevent the spread of tumors from the breast to vital organs such as the lung or liver. Next slide, please. So at the same time as we were doing those molecular studies, as I said, I went to Barbados and initiated studies there with the oncologists and pathologists. And then colleagues in Jamaica heard about the study that we were doing, and they asked to be involved. Because Blessing was from Nigeria, she had a fellowship, which was a really unique fellowship. She got a full scholarship, but part of the scholarship also required that she conduct research in her home country and give back to her home country. So this was excellent because part of our hypothesis was perhaps there's a genetic predisposition among Black women in the diaspora that emanated from our ancestors during the transatlantic slave trade, since we're all descendants of slaves from that era. And so one of the questions we had was, does Kaizo expression correlate with poor patient survival? And we found that it did. In the interest of time, I'm not showing you all that data, but we found that it did in our cohort of patients from Barbados and Nigeria. Next slide. So one of the next things we did was we actually collected tissues from Barbados and Nigeria, 50 Barbadian and 40 Nigerian women with triple-negative breast cancers. And rather than screening those tissues one at a time, what we did was we took small pieces of each of those tissues from those patients, so that's approximately 90 patients, and we put them little pieces on one tissue block, which allowed us to basically screen all 90 tissues simultaneously rather than screening them one at a time. So what you're looking here is looking at what a tissue microarray would look like. On the very bottom left corner, I want to touch my computer, but basically you see a little, I don't know, rectangle with lots of dark regions and not so dark regions. And then to the right are the lots of circles, again, with different shades of brown or blue. And basically each of those circles represents a piece of triple-negative breast cancer tissue from an individual different woman. And then we're screening those for the expression of Kaizo, the BRCA1 gene, which many of you may have heard of, that predisposes women to breast cancer as well. And that's how we correlate the expression of various genes and proteins with tumor survival. With overall survival. Next slide, please. So when we did this study, we were actually really surprised and excited to find that the Nigerian and Barbadian women express significantly more Kaizo, again, indicated here by the dark brown staining in the tissues from Nigerian women, Barbadian women, a lot less in African-American women, and even less in Caucasian women. And this, as I said, in the interest of time, I'm not showing you all the data, but what we found was that these high levels of Kaizo expression correlated with poor patient survival. So the white women or Caucasian women with very little Kaizo had lots of high survival from triple negative breast cancer, whereas the Black women did not. Next slide. So this is just to highlight some of the research that's ongoing in my lab. I know you're not here to just hear me this evening, so I had to really abbreviate my talk and leave out a lot of exciting data. But basically, some of our current and ongoing studies are, we're trying to understand what's even causing the high levels of Kaiser expression in aggressive cancers, whether it be breast or prostate. As I said, it seems that high Kaiser expression is contributing to aggressive cancers, not just breast cancers. And we also want to, we hope to develop some kind of diagnostic or prognostic test where we just look at the level of Kaiser expression, and that might help us to identify women who are most at risk of developing triple negative breast cancer or having a very aggressive form of triple negative breast cancer, so that then they can then make informed decisions about their treatment and possibly about getting a mastectomy or lumpectomy or etc. We also, I didn't talk about this, but we also sequenced the genomes of approximately 35 triple negative tumors from Black women, Nigerian and Barbadian women. And we've got a ton of data that we now need to parse through to see whether or not there are any specific and unique mutations that might explain why women of African ancestry are so prone to triple negative breast cancer. So moving right along, I just want to remind everyone that we're in the International Decade for People of African Descent. We have less than 2 years left. Next slide. And so, as this is a talk about health equity, I also want to make some recommendations to improve health in the Black communities. We need increased representation of Black health professionals and researchers. We need to diversify our workforce and engage our various organizations to participate in anti-racist activities. We also need to have improved health and cultural literacy in our healthcare settings. So cultural competency training for all of healthcare professionals, and definitely cultural sensitivity and tailored information for all Black patients, and ideally even having patient navigators unique not just to Black patients, but to every other community, equity deserving community group that's attending our hospitals. And ultimately, we also need better screening and programs and access to care. Next slide. So for those of you in the audience asking, what can you do? I like to say representation with agencies is what matters. Having token Blacks or Indigenous or South Asian or Latinx employees is just tokenism. We need agency. Here I'm just showing some photos of my lab over the past couple of years. The students found me because everyone thought that I recruited diverse students intentionally. I did not. These are the students that reached out to me because they were interested in the research we were doing, because they saw the relevance to helping make a change in society. And so representation with agency means that we are valued, we are heard, our ideas are discussed, they're understood, and then hopefully some of them will be implemented. We don't expect all to be implemented, but it would be great if some of them were implemented, and we were given credit for that. Next slide. So I'd like to end, since you guys are in Ottawa, and I know you're all big hockey fans, or maybe not. I'd like to end and also to inspire youth that may be listening or in the audience. So these are what I call tips from the great one, Wayne Gretzky. I love this particular quote of his. When he was asked what was the secret of his success, he said that most people skate to where the puck is. He always skated to where the puck is going. So you have to dream big, be visionary, look at the world around you, see where the trends are. And rather than skating or doing what everyone's doing now, think about where the world is going to be 10, 15, or 20 years from now, and position yourself to be a leader at that time. For educators in the room, see the full potential of each of your students. We're all unique and different. As I said, no one suggested I become an engineer. They were all very much like, oh, science, then you should be in med school. So I really encourage educators to see the uniqueness and potential of each of your students and try to nurture those gifts and skills. And for students in the audience, young and old, I don't think you have to be young to be a student. Get out of your comfort zone, stretch yourself, and just roll with the punches. Because success is like an iceberg. Many people just see that 1/10% or 10% above the iceberg, but below that is the 90% that many of us, are dealing with, the rejection letters, the sleepless nights, the tears, the, disappointments, we can go on and on. So next slide. And finally, just like our Indigenous elder mentioned, like the eagle is like one of the, incredible exemplars of how we should all be. We should be spreading our wings, soaring to new heights, rising above it all, and being a really keen observer so that we can grab opportunities when they come. Because luck is opportunity plus preparation. You can have the opportunity but no preparation, or the preparation but no opportunity. So luck is that opportunity plus preparation at the same time. And ultimately find a career where you will thrive, because the sky is the limit. And my favorite mantra that my students are all like, hear me say over and over and over, it's your attitude and not your aptitude that determines your altitude. I used to hire initially students that were straight A students, but some of them had such horrible attitudes, the experiments never worked. And now I tend to hire students who have way more positive attitudes, because I could teach them to do an experiment, but I cannot teach them to be nice people. And it has made a huge difference in their outcomes and their success. Next slide. And just to, again, reiterate, like at the end of the day, we all have to stay healthy, take care of our mental health. And my way of dealing with mental health, especially in my first 6 years before I got tenure, the whole lead up to tenure was ballroom and Latin dancing. So I highly recommend you find something that you love and just pursue it and do it. Next slide, please. And finally, I'd like to dedicate this talk to my mentor, Dr. Al Reynolds, in whose lab I discovered Kaizo. Al unfortunately passed away suddenly in November of last year, and we're all incredibly grateful for the training and mentorship that he gave us to become established independent professors in our own labs globally. Next slide. And finally, just want to acknowledge my entire team of trainees over the years. I'm not going to go over all the names of my collaborators nationally and internationally, but they're all there. And our funding agencies, can't forget that, Tri Council funding agency, CIHR, NSERC, in case there are any in the audience. Next slide. And last, a pitch for a research study that I'm also engaged in, and we're actively recruiting participants. Again, this is also something that's near and dear to me. And as a researcher, we know that Black people do not participate in research studies and clinical trials. And this is to our own detriment by not participating. We need to participate to ensure that when these drugs, et cetera, are being tested, that they're going to work on us, and that we won't know that unless we participate in the studies. This is a non-invasive study. This is literally a study to determine the Black women's, or to I should say, report on the experiences of Black women during their breast cancer care journey. And we are trying to recruit as many women as possible, and men, who have gone through a breast cancer diagnosis and journey, to share their stories with us through interviews. We have scripted interviews, etc. And then this will be written up into a publication, which will also help lead to, hopefully, policy changes in healthcare systems, federally and provincially. So please reach out to me if you want to participate in the study, because we're actively recruiting women of all ages across Canada. So you don't have to be in Ontario. This is a national study that we're conducting. Next slide. And I will end there and take your questions. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. That was very educational. I kind of got emotional in between, and I realized that there's so much I don't know. And I know I'm not the only one. So, let's take a step forward and really look into what's going on with us, Black women. Yeah. Okay. So next up, we have Dr. Danielle Brown-Shreves. She's a family physician with a passion for serving others. She aims to touch humankind through medicine. Dr. Brown-Shreves is a graduate of the University of West Indies in Jamaica, where she also completed her undergrad studies and medical degree. Dr. Brown-Shreves trained at the University of Ottawa in the Department of Family Medicine during her residency. Years later, she decided I apologize. The emotions are rising up and I'm really trying to like hold myself. Please forgive me. Dr. Brown-Treves trained at the University of Ottawa in the Department of Family Medicine during her residency. Years later, she decided to pursue her passion for global health at Northwest University in Chicago, where she completed her Master's of Science in Global and Health. Dr. Brown-Treves opened a multidisciplinary medical clinic in the heart of Ottawa. That's beautiful. She is CEO and founder of Restore Medical Clinics. Her practice is focused on providing comprehensive, collaborative, and compassionate care to the community with an emphasis on vulnerable population. In addition to her clinical accomplishment, she has various academic achievements. Dr. Brown-Treves is an assistant professor at Queen's University Department of Family Medicine. In this role, she is an avid preceptor and supports many students through their training. In 2022, she was promoted to the Health Equity Lead and was appointed an adjunct professor at the University of Ottawa, the Department of Family and Medicine, where she continues to support medical learns. Dr. Brown-Treves is also an involved community member, and in 2018, she founded the Restore International Foundation, a charity organization that serves vulnerable population by increasing access to medical care and education. Could you please clap and celebrate her as she comes up?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I like participation. I want to take this time to thank Diane and all the persons that helped put together this event. I'm really honored to be able to speak in celebration of Carrie's life and her legacy. Today, I'm going to be talking about embracing equity in healthcare. Equity is, it's a word that we have been hearing around for the last little while. We hear about equity, diversion, inclusion. We're hearing that word every day, but we're going to explore a little bit what does that really mean, right? And equity in simple terms really is just fairness, right? It means that people have what they need in order to live their best lives. So if you look at that picture on the screen, you'll see equality where everyone gets the same. All three persons have the stool at the same height, but there is one person who's not even able to see at all. Equity means that people are getting exactly what they need to be able to function. So they have fair opportunities, they have fair chances in order to achieve success. And then we look at that in terms of health equity really refers to, could we go to the next slide, please? Health equity really just means that everyone can access care when they need it, care how they need it, irrespective of somebody's age, irrespective of someone's gender, irrespective of race. It means that everyone can achieve full health outcomes. Now, there is different areas where we realize that women have negative health outcomes. Black women in particular, have significant health disparities when it comes on to cancer mortality, maternal health, and also cardiovascular disease. In terms of cancer mortality, we're seeing a lot of this in terms of breast cancer, and Dr. Daniels just gave us an amazing overview, so I won't go into the details of breast cancer too much, but just to say that there are a lot of health inequities in terms of breast cancer care for Black women. We see this with the death rate being much higher in Black women, 40% higher compared to Caucasians. We find that also, and this is based on the National Institute of Health studies, most of these numbers are from the United States. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of data in Canada itself, but we're seeing that our young Black women under 50 years have a death rate of at least 2 times of our white counterparts. That is a problem, a significant problem, because we're screening for breast cancer at age 50 for most people, but then we have a lot of young women unfortunately dying, and our Black women account for the majority of those numbers. At every age, the data shows us that Black women are more likely to die from breast cancer than any other ethnic group. And the inequities are really based on inadequate health care, lack of access to care, lack of access to information, lack of access to screening. Cervical cancer is another area where we're seeing a lot of disproportionate data. Now, cervical cancer, like breast cancer, it's a condition that can be, diagnosed early. You can also screen for it, and it's also very treatable. But if it's found in its late stage, then unfortunately, sometimes the options become more limited. And again, we're looking at data from the National Institute of Health, where it shows that cervical cancer disproportionately affects Black women. And it's not so much that the incident rate is any different. So you have Blacks having cervical cancer at the same incidence as whites, but Black women are dying more. So that tells me that there's something going on there. It's not because there are genetic differences, but oftentimes you find that, systemic racism, institutional policies, just a lack of access to information that contributes to that. We see that in maternal health as well. Again, really disappointing data that shows, like, on average, there is at least a 3 times greater mortality rate from pregnancy complications for Black women. Oftentimes we hear our Black women saying, they're not being heard, they're not being understood by physicians, or their concerns are really just ignored, right? And a lot of times, these practices are rooted, in racism, unfortunately. Next slide, please. So some of the factors, as I mentioned before, we talk about quality in healthcare. Black women sometimes don't get the same quality of care that other women may get in some parts of the world, including Canada. Black women tend to also have other underlying chronic conditions, whether it may be because of certain socio-demographic factors. So, income levels, education, where someone lives. These things really should not be a factor, but unfortunately, they contribute significantly in who can access care, who can receive care, and what kind of outcomes they have. And this is where health equity tends to bridge that gap. What we're trying to say is that those who need that care, the groups that need more, resources, more in terms of education, more in terms of access to screening, should have that access. And that's what equity looks like. Next slide, please. We also spoke about cardiovascular disease. And this is also from the National Institute of Health that says, compared to white women, Black women have a higher rate of cardiovascular disease mortality. So we're seeing a higher incidence of diabetes, higher incidence of hypertension, and also the complications. So heart attack, stroke, etc. And it's for, similar reasons, right? So, Blacks in general, because of the socio-demographic factors, may not have certain resources. They may not be able to, buy foods that will help cardiovascular health. So you tend to find there's a higher rise of obesity, other chronic disease that negatively impact health. So just wanting to say in this slide that racism does impact health, and it impacts health in a very negative way. As a global health professional, I see racism as a global health concern. It's really an issue in the health of the population in general. We need to find ways to be able to optimize care for those who are marginalized, those who are racialized, and those who are really needing that care to ensure that the health outcomes are parallel. What that may look like is that, institutions may need to change policies. Institutions may need to create awareness. Institutions may need to make a concerted effort to introduce that equity lens in all areas of care. Individually, what that looks like, that also looks like Black women educating themselves, Black women having that knowledge so they can advocate for themselves, they can advocate for their health. If you know that you are supposed to be getting a pap test every 3 years, then let that be the driver. Let that be the driver to say, you know what, I'm going to be doing this for me. I have to take care of my health. If we just wait for the systems to change, that could be a long time. We have to have that courage and take our health in our own hands to also play a role in ensuring that outcome. Addressing racism also looks like institutions rebuilding trust amongst Black people. If we, I could not conclude the talk without talking about, the whole history of why this is an issue for our Black women. Oftentimes we'll find that, or Black women will come in even as a clinician, and people, express a lot of doubts. People express a lot of fears, and that's because they don't trust the system. They can't trust the healthcare system as a whole, because Black people have been lied to. They've been taken advantage of, unfortunately, in the past, in ways that have negatively impacted their health. So one of the ways that we can rebuild that trust is for healthcare system to really promote partnerships with community, rally around B3 organizations, build a trust so that people can feel safe to access care. Next slide. Now, why STEM? Why STEM? Choosing a career in STEM is very important. And I'm not saying that because I'm medical. It is so important just knowing that you can go to a place and see other people that looks like you. We know that, the data shows that when a Black physician takes care of a Black patient, the health outcome is completely different. And there's a lot of factors that come to play in that, right? Just, having that cultural awareness, cultural competency, just, being able to express cultural humility in dealing with patients, knowing certain nuances, certain, responses that a patient may give, just understanding body language, all of these cultural context does help when we're taking care of patients. No wonder the outcomes are different. Right now, I mean, it's very hard to find Black medical professionals. So I wonder what will happen to, the Black women who are saying, I want to advocate for myself. I want to do this by finding a Black physician, a Black health professional. But if there are very few of us, it becomes very difficult. So I would say choose a career in STEM because we need that representation. And it's that representation that will also help to contribute to health equity, right? When we see more of us providing that care, then it's from that equity lens, we also sit at tables where we'll ensure that the Black community will also get what it needs, not equal platform, but what we need. And that could look like 3 stools, it could look like 5, but everyone has that opportunity to be at their best possible health. So I want to once again thank everyone for listening to this presentation. I wanted to keep it really brief just in case you had questions. I mean, I will share just, a personal experience that I had in my office. I mean, the vast majority of my patients are from, the BIPOC community, just by nature of the, the group that I serve, right? And I realized that there's so many different concerns. There's so many things that patients will raise from time to time, whether it be, I have not had a pap test in 5 years. I was afraid. I didn't know what to do, or I didn't have a mammogram done. I've never done it. I'm afraid. I realize that fear tends to be, an important factor for a number of individuals. What I would encourage everyone is to really take the time just to find a trusted professional, one that you can talk to, one that you can engage with. But it's very important to have these screening tests done. Screening saves lives. And when I say screening, I mean that you have no symptoms at the time. If you wait until you have symptoms, then it's no longer a screening test. We want to find the disease when it's in its very early stage. That's when treatment is most likely to have significant impact. So whether it's a pap test for cervical cancer, or a mammogram for breast cancer, or a stool test, or colonoscopy for colon cancer, I want to really, really emphasize that screening saves lives. Trust your bodies. Trust your bodies. Trust your bodies. Most people know. A lot of times, if physicians listen to patients will actually tell them, hey, something is wrong. It may not follow the normal pattern. So we tend to see breast cancer over 50. So that's when screening starts. But we know it can affect younger people. So trust your bodies. If you feel like something is wrong, please show up to get that care. If you happen to be dismissed or not taken seriously, please show up again or somewhere else where that concern can be addressed, because we don't want to just keep hearing these statistics that Black women or Black people have poor health outcomes. We're more likely to die of cervical cancer. I think there comes a point where, we have to say that the equity work shouldn't just be about talking, it shouldn't just be about writing policies and saying, we have a department for equity, diversion, and inclusion. We do all these things, but where we actually see this mobilize into action and we actually see the impact through health outcomes. So once again, I just want to thank you for your time.
Wow. I hope some of us are stirred by this information. For me personally, I'm very stirred. And I have to confess, I did a pap test a few months ago, and before that, I couldn't remember when I did it. And so I'm encouraging all of us to really take care of our health. And some of us maybe were stirred to get involved even in a deeper way. And some of the young people and even, as I said, anybody 90 and younger. So maybe you're stirred to go back to school, even if you're 50 or 60, to get involved. So I encourage all of us to do so, because these disparities, we can make a change and change this trend. And so let's do what we can. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Solange Tuyishimi Keta. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced it. I practice a lot, but I think so sorry, really sorry, Solange. She is currently serving as the president and CEO of Elevate International. She is the co-founder of Nyla's Legacy and a UNICEF Canada ambassador. On a mission to make the world a better place as an international speaker, Solange inspires leaders to achieve a humanity-first, gender equity approach at all leadership tables. This work is in parallel and complementary to her leadership role as the president and CEO of Elevate International, where she has dedicated her life to elevating women and girls through the advancement of women's leadership and economic empowerment. In her role as UNICEF Canada ambassador, Solange has served as a spokesperson for National UNICEF Day in Canada and has been actively advocating for children's rights to a quality education and access to clean water, including serving as keynote speaker at several of UNICEF's Canada's galas. Solange has visited UNICEF's early childhood programs in Jamaica and has also traveled to see UNICEF-funded education programs in Haiti, which is my home country. So thank you, Solange. And so please help me welcome Solange to the stage.
I was wondering why that introduction was so long. She wanted to get to the Haiti part. I was like, really? You can just read the first little part and then we're good to go. Now I understand why. We just wanted to get to Haiti. It was wonderful. It was a great experience. One that reminded me why it's so important that we always disconnect and reconnect when we travel internationally, to understand how other people live, the different circumstances, because it allows us to understand the different realities and how we implement those realities in the work that we do. So good evening, everyone. My name is Solange Tuyishimi Keta. You did well. Yes, you did well. I do emphasize on the Keita because my husband was like, you should just take Keita. And I'm like, but I love Tuishime. He's like, but it's so complicated. Keita is better. Like every African man, Keita is amazing. I'm like, I love Tuishime. So then it became Tuishime Keita, and my poor children are stuck with these two East African and West African names, and they're born in Canada. Wonderful. I thought about this conversation here and why I was invited, because I am not a doctor and I don't specialize in health. But my work focuses on advancing women in senior leadership positions. And what does that mean? First and foremost is that we want more women to be amongst the senior leaders of our society. And this is something that I would say it wasn't born yesterday. It was born when I was a young girl, 11 years old, after losing everything, after a war and genocide. To anybody who's from East Africa, you quickly understand where I'm from. But I think when you experience war and genocide as a young child, you see it from a different lens. You don't see ethnicity, you don't see color, you see a human being suffering. The fear is the same, whether you're a child of a certain ethnicity or a different one. We all have the same fear, we all hang on to our parents the same way, and we all want the same security. So for me, in that moment, I made a significant promise to myself that I would dedicate my life to making this world a better place. I think when you experience the world at its worst stage in your life, and as an 11-year-old, watching you lose everything and people you love the most, it changes how you see the world and it changes how you interact with people. And these circumstances have two opportunities. They can either completely destroy you or make you understand the world to a human level that most people don't often understand. And for me, it was the opposite. I saw people, but then in that same moment, I equally recognized that women and girls were rarely at the leadership table, especially when we talk about women and children. Yet, everything that was happening around us was decided by everyone else, but not women and girls, and especially not children. So when I made a commitment to making this world better, first, I knew that I wanted the voices of our youth to be heard, but I also wanted women to sit at the leadership table. When I was thinking about my speech today, it's funny because we talk about leadership and the policies and the practices we need to implement, but then you also think, me as a woman. So I would say 12 months ago, after receiving my second shot of our COVID vaccine, and this is nothing to talk about specific COVID, because I know people at home, we all went like, you were either for or against, and people were fighting and neighbors were not talking. This is not that. But after receiving my second vaccine, I normally in the summer, every morning, I go for a 10K run every morning, no exception. And I'm doing my run and I felt a bit funny and my heart was feeling a bit icky. And I didn't really know what that meant. And I thought, okay, maybe I've been running regularly and it's a heat stroke. That's the first thing I think, because as a young girl, when I moved to Canada to make friends, I played soccer. And eventually I became so good, I became captain of the soccer team and I played competitive soccer all through university, etc. So then I thought, maybe it's a heat stroke, because I knew what we used to feel like when we played and it was too hot. And through this run, and I still start feeling funny and my heart is feeling very strange. And then I decided maybe I should walk home. Try to walk home, I get home. And then you start doing that thing that women do, especially Black women. I must be too tired. Maybe I took on too much. Women do this generally. When you add on Black women and women of color, because of what culturally society has expected us to take on as responsibility, the first thing you think about, I must be too tired, I must be stressed, I just need to sleep it off, I'm okay. And I did that. I remember telling my husband, I'm like, I don't feel so well, but I'm gonna sleep it off and it's gonna be fine. I wake up the next morning and my arm is numb and my leg is going numb. And then I knew something is really off. So I try to get out of bed and I lift my arm and it's dropping by itself. And then I said, okay, well, this is not good. So I remember going in the bathroom and I called my husband because our girls were around. And I didn't want my children to see me in that state. And I said, babe, I really think we got to go to the hospital. And he knew, because normally you would literally have to drag me to the hospital for something to be wrong. And sure enough, I get there. It didn't take long for them to say you have pericarditis, because as a side effects, you're one of the few that received the side effects from the vaccine. And I remember asking the doctor, I said, well, what am I missing? Because I just did 3 exams. And after these 3 exams, there were 5 Black women that were also behind me. So what am I missing? And it made me realize that sometimes this health system that we trust, we also need to play a big part in improving it and being part of improving it, because often we're not part of the equation. So for me, something that they told me will go away in 3 weeks took about 9 months of no jogging, no nothing. And the medication I was taking was so hard on my tummy. I was 115 pounds and I could barely function. So when I go back to this role, my role as a CEO, as an advocate that wants to advance more women in senior leadership position, I always say, let's take care of our health first. For us to be sitting at the leadership tables means that our health need to be in a great state. And it means that we need to take away some of these barriers and ideology that we've embedded in our minds of taking care of everyone else first and us last. So for a whole year, I wrote this thing in front of my office to change my mindset. And it was, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. And I say that every day, because every morning at 5 a.m., thank you. Every morning at 5 a.m., when I get up to go to the gym or do my workout, I know my husband is home with 3 girls who he needs to brush their hair, get ready for school. And it took me forever to not feel guilty, like it should be your role as a woman, it should be your role as a wife, you should be making them bright. I literally had to retrain my brain. And sure enough, my husband does it better than me. There is no emotional attachment. We need to get here. Where are the elastics? Where are the pins? Bam, gone. Me, I'm like, do you like that style? Next thing you know, we're late. So in the end, it worked out really, really well for me. But to go back to my point, we need to reprogram in our brain these ideologies, what society is telling us, especially as women and women of color and Black women. Society is telling you should be like this mother. You should be cooking 7 meals a day and it needs to be a fresh meal. And you should be. It's everything you should be versus everything of who I am, who I want to be, and how I want to contribute in this world. And when you find that, you are a better wife, you are a better mother, a community builder, a CEO, because the more we're loving ourselves and knowing who we are and what God in this universe has given us, our gifts, and we're giving them in their true nature, then we're allowed to make true impact. Our children get to see happy mothers. Our husband get to have actually a great time in the bedroom or outside the bedroom, because we're actually but seriously, we don't talk about our healthy sex life because apparently we have no needs. We don't talk about all these things that society is telling us that we should keep internal. And then I say, if we genuinely want to advance as leaders, we will take care of our health so that we can take care of everyone else. But it starts from within, and it starts from the incredible partners. I stand here because I have an incredible husband who understands that my happiness equals the happiness of our household. And it's understanding that our husbands, our fathers, our brothers are also our allies in understanding that our health also comes first. So if we say I have a headache, it's take a break, honey. I got this. So I think it's that culture that we need to change in order for us to advance, for society to advance. We're not doing anybody a favor. It's to society's benefit that we are taking care of ourselves, that we are challenging systems to ensure that all of us, that more women are sitting at the senior leadership tables, so that research and practices and even the healthcare system is changing to be inclusive of all of us. So next time I go to the doctor, or next time there's a side effect, it's not 5 Black women right behind me. It's maybe different people for different reasons. And we can start advancing in a place of trust versus a place of fear. So if anything today, I thank you for having me. I hope that if you take one thing away, don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm, and ensure that you and the next generation and the generations after you, you will continue to empower yourselves so that you can advance as leaders and be part of those that are making the decisions that are impacting our well-being and the systems in which we navigate, so that all members of our society can thrive. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. I think both of us are filled with emotions this evening. So we apologize if we didn't do things perfectly this evening. It was a lot. And so we thank you. We're already at the end. We are. And we appreciate your patience with us. And we're going to be closing the evening. And we thank you. We thank everyone for coming. And yes, absolutely. So Agnes.
Definitely. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to share something really, really quick, if that's okay. In 2018, this is not what I intended to say, but I'm going to share this instead. In 2018, I went to an event called Elevate. And I don't remember who invited me, but I just found myself there with a bunch of government workers, and I wasn't working in the government. I was like, whoa, what is this? And to my surprise, I saw coming on the stage a Black woman, which was Solange. And when I saw her, I said a whisper in my heart. I whispered something in my heart. And the fact that I just came on the same stage that she came down of is telling me that that whisper in my heart is slowly coming true. So I just want to say that representation matters, no matter what. At that time, I was probably, I don't know how old I was, in my 30s somewhere. But, you know, I was a grown woman. So imagine to a little girl, I saw this little beautiful girl right there, and imagine her seeing someone that looks like her in STEM. Like, you know, that's all I'm going to say. All right. Thank you.
So before we leave, I know many of you probably had questions for our speakers. So we ask that you go to them and meet them and ask your questions personally. We have a little networking time. And so go ahead and talk to the speakers. Those of you that have questions for Dr. Daniels, we can also send those questions to her and you can get your questions answered. And for the STEM, remember, we asked you to think of words, empowering words for STEM. Come and see us and let us know.
Let's see. STEM, S.
Okay, really quickly.
S. Anyone thought about S? Sacred.
Oh, I like that. Sacred.
T. Transform. Oh my God.
Tenacious. I love that.
E.
Empowerment. Love
M.
it. Magic. So Diane, we invite you for the closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I know this evening has been very emotional for a lot of you. And I'm just going to reiterate, there are 2 quotes that come to mind. Your first wealth is your health. Take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live. And nothing else matters if you don't have that. So as we come to the end of this very informative and inspirational evening, I'd like to take a few minutes to sincerely thank a few people and organizations who, without this tremendous help and support, this event would not have been possible. I'll, of course, begin first with the family of Kerry, Wayne, and I see Kelly, Carolyn, Tamika, for giving us the blessing and the opportunity to honor Kerry's life and legacy. I hope this outpouring of support from this community coming together in solidarity to support her memorial award provides you with some comfort during these tough times. There's a Jamaican saying, good friend, better than pocket money. To my friends who is family, and Rashida, she's not here, Terry just left, Joan, Shanta, thanks for helping me with this tribute to Kerry, as well as the words for the memorial bursary. And to the wonderful people from Carleton University who helped coordinate in getting this memorial bursary established. Our sponsors, Nokia Canada, Grace Foods, and our own director of mentorship, Lisa Appia. We apply. Woo. And my good friend Roland always brings his photo booth. So before you leave, please go and get a photo. It's lots of fun. And of course, to Katie, right there, Kevin in the back, and Audrey, and I know Emily's somewhere around here from Invest Automotive View Yards for helping to promote and produce and get this foundry ready for this, hosting us this evening. And of course, the indefatigable Sonia Shorey, your tremendous support from the first time we pitched you this idea and always elevating the visibility of this event to ensure its success. We are extremely, extremely grateful. I also want to give a shout out to the community organization, Canadian Women of Color Network, Black Ottawa Connect, Young Black Professionals, Black History Ottawa. I see Sarah is here, Papa Richie from Rockers. I did a couple interviews with them, Canadian Black Scientists, WCT National, the Jamaica High Commission, and many that I'm sure I'm not aware of. Thank you. To our amazing MCs, our talented Nonzo. She actually had to go and do an exam, so thanks that she came and spent the time with us. She was amazing. And I'd like, I know Dr. Daniel is in Toronto, so we will be sending her gift, but I'd like Solange, Sonia, and Dr. Daniel Brown-Shreves to come to the stage so that we can present you with gifts, my good Shilpi. Just a small token of appreciation for being wonderful speakers and taking the time to come and spend with us today. And also our MCs. We can't leave you out, eh? You're doing a fantastic job. Come on up. Yeah, Thank you. An extra special shout out to my amazing team, WCT NCR team of Shana, Shilpi, Balqui, Melissa, Jacqueline, and Jasmine. Without your help, the hard work we have done throughout this month, over the months actually, in transforming this idea into reality. I'm beyond grateful for each and every one of you. And lastly, but certainly not least, all of you. Every one of you who decided to take the time out of your busy day. I know it's busy, especially for Black people this month. So we knew you could have been anywhere else, but you chose to spend it with us. And I hope you got value from this experience. And we also hope you leave tonight with a bit more knowledge that you had than when you joined. We encourage you to share it with others where applicable and take that knowledge and transform it into concrete action so that we all collectively as a community and society can move towards a more equitable world for all. And before I close, I would like to invite back on the stage Monique Monash to give the closing land acknowledgement. Thank you.
It's been a real honor for me to be here with you tonight, to share this, to share community, to, everything I heard, it's so similar to my community, the struggles, the joys, the successes, the issues, the challenges. It's just, I think it boils down to humanity, and it boils down to people of color. And Indigenous people, I think we share so many qualities and so many experiences. And I'd like to invite all of you to learn, to find out more about me and my community. And I am really, really excited to learn more about you. So you're going to see me around. So I'd like to close this space. And in closing, take what we've learned, take the knowledge, take the friendship, take the caring, and bring it home with us and share it with our family and with our friends and with our community and with our workplace. It's everybody taking that one step, that eventually changes what needs to be changed, but it's only, one person, one step at a time. So I'll just, to close this space, I'll say a few words to the Creator. Kachimigwich Jemnido, thank you for the water, for the trees, for the plants, for the ones who swim, for the ones who crawl, for the ones who fly, for the furred, for the feathered, for the four-legged, and for the two-legged. And thank you for bringing everyone here together tonight with open hearts, with open minds. Help us to see truth. Help us to hear beauty. Help us to speak with kindness and with compassion. And help us to work together for the benefit of all of our communities. Kachimigwich, 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 Kachimigwich. And I'm really kind of excited to say safe travels home. For 2 years I was saying safe travels to the kitchen. So, so to be here with everybody and say, so safe travels back to your family. Kachimigwich. Thank you.